Live from the JLE in London, you're listening to History for the Curious, the podcast. 20 minutes with Rabbi Aubrey Hirsch, hosted by myself, Mena Reisner. Join us as we cross continents, sail through the centuries, tracing lives, uncovering events, and following epic journeys to reveal the untold stories and the mysteries that have impacted our history and shaped us into who we are today. There's so many miraculous... It's almost like she had 9 lives.
Yes.
There must have been times that she wasn't able to carry out her plans. I mean,
I'm sure that it's true, but what she spoke of were the heartbreaks that almost destroyed her. The Jews that she saw being brought into Gestapo headquarters, whom she knew she couldn't save. In particular, one Jewish woman whom Muller brought into Helene's office to try and discover where this woman's husband was hiding. The woman refused to speak, and as she was led away towards the cellars, Helene knew that somebody would pay the ultimate price. Either the woman herself as she was being tortured, or her husband if she revealed his location. And these tragedies absolutely haunted her. Now, to make the Nazis' job easier, in 1943, a notice was posted on the streets of Brussels proclaiming a reward of 40 Belgian francs to be paid to any citizen whose information resulted in the arrest of a Jew. And any letters were to be addressed to the Brussels Gestapo on the 8th floor of Avenue Louise. The informers had to collect their reward in person, and soon began calling to the Gestapo office to collect their 40 francs. Since France and Helene were the only fluent French and German-speaking personnel in that Gestapo section, they were assigned the unpleasant task of paying informers. But the one thing it did enable them to do was to get these informers' names and addresses, which she put on a list which she passed on to the resistance for the future. Although one repulsive individual who reported to the office on 6 different occasions, each time to collect his 40 pieces of silver, in response the underground gave him special treatment. 2 men called at his home and slit his throat as a warning to others.
Who was the underground?
Listen, she was part of a cell. Generally, the resistance in any of the occupied countries was not limited to one resistance movement. And sometimes the different factions didn't get on with one another, the communists and the nationalists.
They were generally Jewish.
No. By no means. They were generally non-Jewish members of Belgian nationals who wanted to commit acts of sabotage and anything that would slow down the German war machine. But in consequence, they were also able and often willing to help a Jew who turned to them, or people like airmen, for instance, who had been shot down and needed shelter, needed then to be somehow spirited out the country, all of which was done at tremendous risk. But the vast majority of them were non-Jewish. It's just that she had an in and was able to plead the case of Jews from time to time. Now, there's so many events in her life of self-sacrifice, and danger, was never far away in her life. But one particular one occurred towards the very end of 1943. Schwenker was not only an ambitious Nazi, he was an envious one. And he wanted to earn promotion to lieutenant colonel to be placed on an equal footing with his boss Muller, whose post he actually wanted to take over. And he revealed to an officer in a different section that he didn't like or trust this Lieutenant Franz Bochler. He was too evasive, he was too much of a playboy, and he meant to have him closely watched. And he then installed a secretary in his office to keep him informed about how this Franz spent his time, which obviously meant that Franz and Helen were now being spied upon. So they realized that the only way around it was to get rid of him. And a group of girls was sent to spy out a suitable location where this killing could take place, in or near the Forêt des Soignes, where Schwenker's mistress lived. And they were able to confirm that he left his mistress's house every morning just before 8 o'clock and took a shortcut along a trail. Now, it was agreed that they couldn't use a gun to get rid of him because this would result in the shooting of hostages. The execution would have to be done by a dagger or a knife, and they would have to remove his wallet and his watch to make it look as if it was a mugging of a common criminal, and therefore his papers and his gun were not to be touched. But the executioner had to be somebody who was well known to Schwenker. Why otherwise would he stop and allow himself to be engaged in conversation? And since he didn't speak any French, it couldn't be a stranger. He needed, on the other hand, to be caught by surprise. All of which pointed to Helene as being the perfect and perhaps only candidate to carry out this assassination. So they looked through this trail and found a convenient site, a tree stump, where she was to sit and sort of nurse an imaginary sprained ankle. And when he passed by, he would sort of notice her. She would exaggerate her predicament and ask if he could help her up. And when he bent over, she was to kill him. And this is exactly what happened. And as he bent down, she grabbed a dagger from her handbag and thrust the knife into his stomach. He screamed in pain and tried to stand up, so she yanked the knife out and stabbed him repeatedly, blindly, saying to herself, "This is for all the Jews that you've murdered." And she saw and she felt blood everywhere, on her clothes, on her hands, on her face. And after she killed him, in a panic, she suddenly couldn't remember where Franz's car was located. Thankfully, she managed to locate the path soon afterwards. She changed her clothes in the car, and these were eventually burnt, and Franz and her were now able to resume their underground activities unhindered until the end, until, the liberation in August, September 44.
Incredible. It's a teenage girl.
Yep, and untrained. It's not as if she'd, gone through an intense course of underground abilities to survive and to think, etc.